Hi, listeners. I'm Jim Tube, and with me here at Honeybee Obscura is Jeff Ott from the Beekeeping Today podcast. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jim. Thanks a lot for inviting me by.
Well, I got to tell you what's going on here. I got a call from a good friend of mine who has property about 40 minutes from here, and I keep bees there. Nice, quiet place, little cabin on a pond there, and he called and said, "You got bee equipment scattered all over down here."
Oh, no.
Jeff, I've gotten those calls before. I'm almost sure that that's bears, and that's what I want to talk to you about here for a while. Bears in your bee yard.
Sounds like a good topic. Let's get going.
You are listening to Honeybee Obscura, brought to you by Growing Planet Media, the folks behind Beekeeping Today podcast. Each week on Honeybee Obscura, hosts Kim Flodham and Jim Tube explore the complexities, the beauty, the fun, and the challenges of managing honeybees in today's world. Get ready for an engaging discussion to delight and inform all beekeepers. If you're a long-timer or just starting out, sit back and enjoy the next several minutes as Kim and Jim explore all things honeybees.
Listeners, before you say, "Well, I don't have any bears in my location," let me tell you, I've been keeping bees now for about 50 years, and 3 times I've gotten the call. So before you hang up on me here and decide this is not for you, it may happen more than you realize. So I don't know what to say. Be prepared, because when you least expect it and you get the call, then you need to have some idea of what you're going to be doing. You don't always know when bear attacks are coming.
What's the first thought you have when you receive that call, Jim? That you can say on the air.
The first thing that I can say on the air, that's a good way to cover that. When he calls up and says, "You got bee equipment scattered all over down here," well, my mind races. Because what happened? Was it a windstorm?
Yeah.
Was it vandalism? Years ago, I got the call. "You got bee equipment on the private runway of a local airport that needs to be moved." And you think, "Well, that can't be mine. I don't have bees out there. Is your name J.E.2? It is. Then you got equipment out here on the runway that needs to be moved." And I went out, and it was one of my beehives that I'm sure a bunch of kids had picked up and taken out to the airport and then run over it. It was the oddest thing that I've ever seen. It must have just smashed their car. But those things go through my mind. Well, it's got to be kids, because there hasn't been bears in that area in 100 years.
Yeah.
So then it takes time for you to accept the fact that I've got to drop everything. I've got to change my entire schedule that I've got laid out and dash down there and see what caused this. And Jeff, while you're having those thoughts, the bear thing begins to pop up. Is there a bear down there again? Is that what that is? So that's the first thought. It's not really the bad language you might expect or whatever, because you don't know exactly what it is
Right.
at first. It's going to be weather, vandalism, or bears.
Yeah.
My friend said, "I guess it could be raccoons." So you think, well, can a raccoon turn a hive over? But when I got down there, I'll jump ahead to a spoiler alert here. No, if it was a raccoon, it was 150 to 200-pound raccoon that did this. So clearly, this was not a raccoon. So you got to deal with that.
So what happened? So you went down there and what'd you find? Was it as bad as your friend had said? Was it really that all over the place?
Can I say that it's 50-50?
Mm-hmm.
I only keep 2 hives there. I was trying to be a good friend, trying to be a good neighbor. We have cookouts down there, and our grandkids go get little fish out of the pond. And so it's just kind of a fun place. He doesn't want 40 hives, in that life down there. So 2 hives. One of the hives is completely untouched. It's fine. The other hive was scattered over probably a 30 to 35 yard radius. And it's like the more difficult, demanding, troublesome place is where the bear tried to get to. Multiflora rows, crossing drainage ditches. I mean, this animal, I guess, Jeff, was trying to get away from the bees. I think the colony still was alive. I hadn't seen it in about a month and a half, but the last time they were vibrant colonies, and I think that the animal was trying to get the equipment away from the bees.
Yeah.
And so they scattered it all over.
How close were the two hives sitting beside each other?
They were 15 yards apart. I mean, it's just right there.
Mm-hmm.
If the bear could see one hive, he could certainly see the other, which, Jeff, as an aside, I didn't move that hive. Why didn't you move that hive, Jim? Go ahead. I'm going to anticipate your question. I think because I'm lazy, if I could be honest. Either I'm lazy or I'm old. It's a heavy hive. It's in 2 deeps. The top deep is full of honey. It's on a hive stand. So I'm going to have trouble picking it up and getting a strap under it. I can only move that thing off the hive stand with somebody helping me. And here we go. After all these years of keeping bees, I really don't have anyone who's eager to help me with these things anymore. I have used up everyone. So that hive is okay. It should be moved. But where would I move it? Bring it back here? Then I've lost an outyard. Mm-hmm. So do you leave it there and think, well, I get a bear attack about once every 6 years, so maybe it won't matter by the time it rolls around again.
I would almost think that if you left it there, the bear already knows there's food available. I'd be concerned about losing that second hive.
Well, I'm not a bear biologist, and anyone listening who is going to be painfully aware that I'm not a bear biologist. But those things aren't they migratory? Don't they cover hundreds of miles? Wasn't he just probably a male? Listeners, I'm in Ohio, and where this bee yard is probably, I'm having to really guess on the fly now, 50 to 60 miles from the Pennsylvania-West Virginia border. So we get these bears, these male bears that are looking for new territories that come out of those areas back over into Ohio, where bears aren't common. In fact, the previous bear attack I had about 6 years ago, we got a lot of interested people, especially the game people, because there had not been a bear attack in this county in 100 years. So everybody wanted to know more about it. So a few people came out and had a look and confirmed, yep, that's bear poop. So, and then there were quotes. It was just like, then there were sightings. Well, I saw him 30 miles down the road. Yeah, I saw a bear over here. So you can follow this bear by people reporting this unusual bear sighting. So what did I see when I got there?
Yes, sir.
One hive was fine. Mm-hmm. Other hive was scattered all over. I mean, over a 25-yard radius in the briars. And this time, this attack was different. The frames were just destroyed. Probably 50% of the frames are absolutely kindling. So I'm surmising that this bear was a good, hardy, healthy animal. I surmise that because the first bear attack I had there about 6 years ago, the bear just scattered the frames. The foundation inserts were knocked out and comb was damaged, but the frames and the boxes were all right there and everything was okay. But not this time. To add to the mystery, the hive was in 2 deeps, and I never found the second deep. I found one deep, maybe 20 yards away, empty. I never found the second deep, which begs the question, if listeners know, let me know, how does a bear carry a full deep of honey? What are they doing? Did they walk on their hind legs? Do they...
Like a circus bear?
There were no tooth marks, no claw marks that I could tell that the animal was carrying it. So I don't know how the animal moved those heavy boxes 20 yards away.
So did you find the frames from the second deep?
Yes, all over. There are frames everywhere.
So you had 20 frames originally in the box. How many did you?
2 boxes.
Yeah. And so how many frames did you recover?
And I got 11 back. And of that 11, probably 4 to 5 of those were seriously damaged, especially the bottom bars.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically just trying to get my foundation inserts back. Kim always says, "What's your time worth?" When you start trying to recover these frames and clean the foundation inserts up, recoat them with wax. Well, it's probably not worth all that, but it's beekeeping. It's something to do.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing I was picking up. I would say probably 60% of the frames are either destroyed or seriously damaged.
So you led with the question, or your neighbor, your friend suggested that it might have been raccoons. How do you know, other than the scattered pieces of equipment, that it was actually a bear? Why not a bunch of teenagers?
Yeah, that's interesting. Give me just a minute to get my wording right. We'll take a break, hear from our sponsors, and then I'll tell you my secret way for determining that it was a bear.
Hey, has winter's chill and weather forced you inside? Well, did you know that Better Bee offers winter classes you can take from the comfort of your own home? Our classes are taught by Dr. David Peck and Eastern Apicultural Society Master Beekeeper Anne Fry. Our classes range from basic courses on essentials of beekeeping all the way up to specifics on planning for the seasons ahead and for your success. Visit betterbee.com/classes to view all of our upcoming learning opportunities.
Yep, it'll be obvious while you're there. You'll begin to see piles of bear scat, bear manure, or whatever. You think, no, this ain't no raccoon. If a raccoon did this, that looks like something as large as the core out of a paper towel roll, this is a serious pile of feces here. And I'd like to keep going on this odd subject. There were at least 5 piles there. So for anyone listening who knows bears, is that common? How often does a bear defecate? Because I want to know how long the bear was there. And all the people in the community want to know how long the bear was there. Did he stay there 2 days? I mean, there's deer hunters and turkey hunters on that property. And they're curious to know. So if I could easily show, without looking for it, 5 piles of bear excrement, does that mean that there were more than one bear there? Or does that mean that the bear just bivouacked there for 2 or 3 days until he would just finally didn't want any more honey and comb ever again?
Well,
I don't know. I don't know, Jeff.
So not to go down too far into the weeds, but being a former horse owner and other animals, so was it like normal bear poop, or was it from fright? Because I was wondering, and I don't know about bears, but if the bear was being stung repeatedly by a bunch of bees, would that cause them out of fright to poop a lot, to defecate, like a horse gets nervous? It starts pooping all over the place. So I wonder if that's the same with the bear. If they're getting stung in the eyes and the ears and the nose.
This is probably a good time for me to admit I don't know much about horses or about bears or about how either one of those animals defecate.
How they poop.
So I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. But along this poop line, though, let me tell you this. It's the oddest thing. You know, you and I did that Halloween presentation a while back where we talked about how odd it is at night by yourself.
Mm.
I've had 3 bear attacks, and 3 times I've gone through this. You go in, you see the mess, you see the colony totally destroyed, you see frames scattered all over, and you're in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to make a plan. Well, pick this up, put the truck over here, get the box back, find the inner cover, just immediate beekeeping responses. And then you notice there's no crickets, there's no birds, there's no squirrel squawking. It is dead quiet. And then you suddenly have the thought that you should have had before you ever got out of the truck. Is that bear still here? I just assume when I pull up, oh, that bear's long gone. He's 30 miles away from that. He's 2 counties over, ripping into somebody's feed bin and their horse barn or whatever he's doing. And then you stand there and you look around like a dork. And then you think of all these jokes. You don't have to run fast when a bear's chasing you. You just got to run faster than the guy behind you. So you think of all these jokes that are not funny at all at that moment. And so you think, well, should I have brought a gun? I don't know that I've got a gun that'll even kill a bear. And then you think, well, can you kill a bear anyway? Are there game laws? And so all of a sudden, and I've done this every time, Jeff, my first response is emergency. Crisis, my bees are in danger. And it's only after I get on the scene that I begin to have these second thoughts. So I don't know what to tell listeners. If you get a call that your colonies have been attacked by bears, you probably want to have that thought first in your mind when you go ripping into your bee yard, not hopping out counting survivors and dead outs. But is that animal still here? Thinking that you're there to take its food away from it.
And you can say,
I don't know how big the risk is.
And you can say you didn't add to the scat piles in the bee yard at that point.
Not at that moment. If that bear had come charging out of the bushes, I would have added to the scat piles. And then, I watch these things on YouTube. Never try to run. When a bear is chasing you, turn around, make yourself as big as possible. And I'm running. I am running. And I know bears can run 20 to 25 miles per hour, and I can run 2 miles per hour. The bear's going to win, but I don't think I could make my feet stay still if that animal came charging out of the woods right there at me. I don't have vast experience at this. Mm-hmm. That's why I ask people not to hang up on me. Because, I've read the things everybody else has read through the years, put up electric fences. In fact, years ago, I read one beekeeper who, and this was in the metal banding days before there were ratchet straps, mm-hmm. He would metal band 4 colonies together and then use migratory covers and nail them on, with the premise being that a bear can certainly manipulate 1 hive, but he couldn't manipulate 4 hives banded together. But I've never done all that. In the old literature in the South, they had huge platforms.
Yeah.
And you put your bees up in the air on those platforms to completely get away from the bears. None of that's me, Jeff. 50 years, 3 attacks. I'm not going to be doing any platform building or any banding, whatever.
You still see some pictures of those hive platforms where there are grizzly bears or other large bears around. That'd be a hard way to keep bees, I think.
That would be a hard way to keep bees. We had a colorful story when I was a much, much younger man. Another friend had property in Canada, and we got all the regulations at the time. It was pre-Varroa, pre-everything. You could take package bees into Canada, and we set up a bee operation at his remote cottage in Quebec. Mm-hmm. And I think we had 15 to 20 hives there. We wanted to really corner the market in Quebec honey. And we got a call about 3.5, 4 months later that we had beekeeping equipment over about a third of that province. That was the biggest mess people had ever seen. It's a 15-hour drive one way. When we got there, every single hive was destroyed. Mm. And I asked when we were setting those up, do you have bears here? Oh, no, there's no bears. You got moose. They may knock them over, but no bears. So for those listeners who didn't hang up, you may not know that you've got these animals sniffing around, because the people who lived in my bear attack, who literally lives 1,000 yards away, had no idea that that animal had been back there. And they got dogs. They got outside dogs. Finally, punching this story out, on the second attack that I experienced,
yes,
that colony was sent to that remote location because it couldn't learn to play nicely with my neighbors here. It kept stinging my neighbor. He's the guy I've talked about in other episodes who said he thought it might be yellow jackets. No, that's my bees. I know what's stinging that. So I moved that colony down there. It was an aggressive, no-nonsense survivor. And that's the one the bear ripped into. He must have paid a price for tearing into that colony. But as I was cleaning and picking up, I picked up the outer cover to put it back on the colony that I'd reassembled.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there was 5 pounds of bees under there on that cold, cool day. And when I picked that top up, it was immediate. I was in multiflora rows. I was in junk and garbage. I had bees everywhere. And then what do, beekeepers? Because I got all these bees flying on this marginal gray day. So I had to let the whole thing settle down. I didn't have any gear on. I had no smoker lighted. So I put them back together, and those bees survived that bear attack. The equipment didn't, but not all of it. But the bees survived the bear attack.
But this last week, you've had no bees left.
No.
Just a bunch of broken
I think
equipment.
what happened this last week is that it was too cold. It was in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And once they broke that cluster and scattered the bees everywhere, there were no clumps of bees. There was no swarm hanging anywhere. Those bees died of cold exposure.
So this was pretty easy post-mortem account of this.
Easy post-mortem.
Of this
there's no raccoon that could carry a deep that far away. Now, the frames were, most of the frames were out of it, and frames are scattered. Could have taken one frame at a time. There's all these details I don't fully understand. My autopsy procedures are not perfect when it comes to analyzing bear scat and broken frames. But there it is, listeners. Right when you least expect it, you get a call that your beehive is over about a 30-yard radius down there, and parts and pieces are broken. And it can just only be one animal. And all the neighborhood, you're the talk of the neighborhood there for a while, that, yep, there's bears back there. Just one more reason not to have bees on your property. They attract bears.
You need to get a new sticker for your truck. It's a BSI, Bear Scene Investigation.
Have I got to string yellow tape out?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I don't have any advice, Jeff, for you or other listeners. I don't know how you anticipate in these marginal areas on these rare occurrences. I mean, I guess I'll stay on that property. It's a nice, wild location. But clearly, at times, there's some significant wildlife there, very quietly going about its business.
And you left the one colony there.
You say that very accusatorially.
No. Joe, so this story, we'll find out whether the bear was in transit from Zone A to Zone B, or
I feel like I'm letting my kids play in the street the way you asked that.
Well, not exactly.
Yes, right now that colony is still there. I know that the neighborhood would want to know if that bear is still roaming the area.
So you left it there as a community service.
Well, hadn't thought about that, but I guess that's one way of looking at it. In my mind, I do plan to move that colony, but I've got to have somebody help me load that one beehive. And then what am I going to do? Bring it back home here? I've already got more hives here than I want.
Well, I'm busy this weekend, Jim.
I know. Everybody's busy with surgical procedures and trips to the moon and whatever. That's all I got. I suffered a bear attack. You too can suffer a bear attack when you least expect it.
It'd be interesting to hear other people's response to bear attacks and how they recovered from them and what information they can pass along.
I hope we hear from them. That's all I got. I'm punched out. I got no more bear stories.
Well, hopefully that's the last one.
For a while. Thanks, buddy. I enjoy talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me.